I post one of these on my Facebook, which was a very tiny account with only friends and family. And I post it and I say, and I write this in Arabic, and I say, when are you going to revolt? When are you going to rise, Syria? And I remember all of my Syrian friends at that time commenting and saying, that's not going to happen here. Why should people rise in Syria? Syria is not like Egypt. And I replied to them and I said, this is exactly what my Egyptian friends were saying 2 months ago. You don't know what's going to happen. Scene 2. It's 2014, early May, and I'm in jail. I'm in jail in the United Arab Emirates, the only country I've known, the country which I consider myself to belong to. I consider myself to be ethnically or culturally Palestinian, but an Emirati by the country of my birth and the country in which I was raised. I'm in jail because I am to be expelled because of my Arab Spring activism. Over the past few years, my Twitter account has grown to be one of the most influential in the country, and it's always a dangerous thing when your Twitter account is more influential than the leaders of the country, and you're an Arab Spring activist, and they are leading the counter-revolution against the Arab Spring. It's not a sustainable situation. I'm in jail, and I'm taken to the deportation chamber, where people who are supposed to be exiled are kept. Everyone there is there for only a few days before they're shipped back home. But there's only one cell in which people have settled down. They've written their own slogans on the walls. They've gotten comfortable in their beds. And that's the cell with the Syrians and the Palestinians. There is nowhere to deport a Syrian, and there is nowhere to deport a Palestinian. Scene number 3, we're being transferred from one cell block to the other. And this is when we were being moved from the holding cell to the deportation chamber. The Syrians do not want to be deported. The United Arab Emirates, unfortunately, regularly deports Syrians back to Syria, where we have no idea what happens to them upon arriving. Some of them are drafted into Assad's army, some of them are killed, some of them are tortured. And I remember it was a horrible scene. And I don't want to get into the details. There's so much abuse and so much racism displayed by Emirati officials against anyone who is not Arab. The Arabs, being me and a few fellow Palestinians and a few fellow Syrians, are huddled in a corner. One of our friends, a Syrian, his name is Bilal, he was a taxi driver in Abu Dhabi. He tried to smooth talk the guards to let him go and to say, don't take me to the deportation chamber now, because the moment they take you to the deportation chamber, there is no way back. They take a retina scan and they not allow you back to the country, which means that the only way for you out is to be sent out. Bilal can see in front of him how security officers are punching, slapping, spitting in the face, kicking. And he knows this is not the worst. He knows this is still the United Arab Emirates. He knows that this is nothing compared to what would happen if he is sent back to Syria. A few minutes later, I see that Bilal has gone off and he's sitting in a corner away from us, alone. And I'm wondering why. I mean, we're huddled together here. Why are you sitting alone? And I try to walk up to Bilal. And I notice that he has wet himself. He has peed himself out of fear. So the story. This is December 2014. I'm in Norway. I'm in a refugee camp. If you know me, you know that I've spent 3 months in a refugee camp called Hashlimon. I'm a political refugee, but most people in the camp are Syrian war refugees. Hashliman is actually not officially called a refugee camp, it's called a reception center. It's like kind of a euphemism. It's a very isolated place. It's actually officially an army camp. Once in a while, it's actually closed for NATO exercises. But that year, it was full of refugees. Mostly Syrian refugees, and mostly from northern Syria. It's December, it's cold. The temperature over there can dip to -25, -26. Every week, the refugees get an allowance of something like 240 kroners. There is nothing around the camp, there's nothing to buy anywhere in the camp. So the only option for you is to walk around 1 hour to the closest town. The closest town is a little town called Voler. You can bike, of course, but in winter you can't really use a bicycle. So me and my two roommates, Abu Umar and Abu Abdul, we're walking back from Voler. We're kind of walking really quickly because we want to be back to the camp before nightfall, which, as you know, in winter, in a place like that, is actually quite early in the. It's kind of like 4 p.m., 3 p.m. when it starts to get dark. So we're walking, we're cracking jokes, keeping each other company, trying to keep warm, singing. And the fact is that both of my roommates continuously doubted their decision to come to Europe, even as they know that they're the lucky ones. They're the ones who ended up safely. And I will never forget it when Abu Umar looks up to me and he starts off on a tangent and he says, "What the hell are we doing here? 3 grown Middle Eastern Arab men on a deserted road, an icy deserted road in Scandinavia. What the hell are we doing here?" A moment of complete alienation and strangeness. And he goes off about how, why aren't we in Dubai? Why aren't we in Mecca? Why aren't we in Jeddah? Why aren't we in Amman? They were closer. Why were the doors of the Arab world shut to us? Now, every now and then we'd get this moment of extreme alienation. Something about this felt absolutely alien and absolutely unfair. Abu Abdul, the other refugee, he was a textile, he owned a textile factory in Aleppo before it was confiscated by the Assad regime and he was forced out. He goes off about how if he had any faith that the war is going to last for another 1 year only, or only 2 years, or only 3 years, then he wouldn't have even taken the journey to Europe. This is a man who walked across Europe in November, in the winter, walked across half of Europe, from Greece, from the Greek border to Vienna, on foot. And he says, if I knew that the solution is going to come in 2 or 3 years, I would have waited in a refugee camp. But he doesn't have that faith. He goes on and says, if Assad falls tomorrow, I'm going to take the first plane back to Damascus. I won't even seek asylum. Abu Umar asked him, what about ISIS? This is before the Russian invasion, the Russian intervention, by the way. What about ISIS? He asked him. He's like, I don't care about ISIS. If Assad is gone, then ISIS is gone. If Assad is gone, then ISIS cannot withstand the will of the people. Refugees do not want charity. They want solidarity. And solidarity is recognizing that it's one struggle. Refugees do not want to end up where they're going to be only tolerated until the first chance to expel them. They want to end up where they can build a life, not where they're going to live in limbo, tolerated, but never welcome. They want to live where their children and their children's children are going to be safe, not only from war, but from also being looked upon as second-class citizens. Refugees want to live in a country that will help them up, open its arms to them, help them to integrate, help them to contribute. And the fact that Syrian refugees do not find this in any Arab country says a lot about the state of the Arab world. People really trivialize how difficult it is, how difficult a decision it is to risk your life to go to somewhere which is so absolutely alien to you and so unfamiliar. It's not an easy decision. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.